The morning he agreed to the marriage, the rain soaked through his only good jacket and into his bones, and he understood that some promises are made not from love or hope, but from sheer survival. He was a single father of 3 fragile lives, a man with hands permanently smelling of soap and cheap detergent, and he was about to marry a woman the world called a disabled billionaire, a woman he had never imagined loving and never expected to save him. Fate did not knock gently that day. It kicked the door open and demanded he choose between pride and his children's future. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet miracles that happen when broken people choose compassion, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel. Stories like this only travel far when good hearts help carry them. He had once dreamed of a simple life, a small house filled with laughter and warm meals, but that dream collapsed the night his wife died during childbirth complications that left him holding 3 newborns and a grief so heavy it bent his spine. The triplets arrived too early, their cries thin and frightened, and from that moment on, life became an endless rotation of hospital corridors, overdue bills, and nights without sleep. He learned how to warm bottles with one hand while filling out insurance forms with the other, how to smile for his children even when eviction notices slid under the door, and how to swallow his dignity when strangers looked at him with pity or suspicion. Love kept him standing, but love alone could not pay medical debts or keep the lights on. The offer came quietly, without drama, as if it were just another bill to be paid. A legal representative contacted him after a charity event where his triplet story had been shared online, explaining that a wealthy woman sought a marriage of convenience. She was a billionaire by inheritance, paralyzed from the waist down after an accident years earlier, and surrounded by relatives who circled her fortune like vultures. She needed a husband to secure her estate and protect her autonomy. He needed stability, health care, and a future for his children. The agreement was simple on paper and devastating in his heart. Marriage without romance, without expectation, without the illusion of choice. He wrestled with the idea for nights, watching his children sleep, their small chests rising and falling in uneven rhythm, and finally understood that love sometimes looks like sacrifice dressed as surrender. Their first meeting was not what he expected. The mansion was vast but cold, echoing with emptiness rather than luxury. She sat in a wheelchair near a window, sunlight tracing the sharp intelligence in her eyes and the quiet exhaustion etched into her face. There was no arrogance in her presence, no self-pity either, only a guarded calm shaped by years of being underestimated and controlled. He felt small there, not because of her wealth, but because she saw him clearly, saw the fear he carried and the fierce devotion that ruled his every decision. In that moment, the arrangement stopped feeling like a transaction and began to feel like 2 wounded souls recognizing the same language of survival. Life after the marriage moved slowly, cautiously, like ice forming over deep water. He moved into the mansion with his triplets, their laughter filling spaces that had been silent for years. She watched them with a softness few people ever noticed, offering resources without intrusion, respect without judgment. He became her companion in public, her shield in private, handling tasks she despised and protecting her from relatives who smiled too wide and listened too closely. In return, she ensured his children received the best medical care, the best education, and the safety he could never have provided alone. Gratitude grew into trust, and trust into something warmer, something neither of them dared to name. The challenges were relentless. Society whispered cruel assumptions about gold-digging and pity marriages. His exhaustion deepened as he balanced fatherhood with new responsibilities, learning the rhythms of a world that was not built for someone like him. She faced her own battles, enduring invasive questions about her body, her abilities, and her worth as a woman. Some nights the mansion felt heavier than the small apartment he had lost, its luxury amplifying loneliness instead of easing it. Yet slowly, through shared routines and quiet understanding, something changed. They began to rely on each other not out of necessity but choice, finding comfort in shared silences and strength in mutual respect. The wedding day arrived without fanfare, planned more as a legal formality than a celebration. The hall was elegant but restrained, filled with guests who came out of curiosity rather than joy. He stood at the front, heart pounding, his triplets seated near the aisle, dressed in matching outfits that made them look impossibly small against the grandeur of the room. He told himself this was just another sacrifice, another promise made for their sake. She was wheeled in, serene and composed, her expression unreadable, her hands resting calmly in her lap. The ceremony unfolded predictably, words spoken, signatures prepared, until the moment no one could have anticipated shattered every assumption in the room. As the final blessing was about to be given, one of the triplets stumbled while trying to wave, nearly falling from their seat. Instinct overtook calculation. She pushed against the armrests of her chair, her body trembling with effort, and for a breathless second the room seemed to stop. Then she stood. Not fully, not effortlessly, but enough. Enough to reach out, enough to steady the child, enough to prove that will can sometimes defy even the strongest limitations. Gasps rippled through the audience, disbelief turning into awe, but she was focused only on the frightened child clinging to her, her face contorted with pain and determination. In that instant, he understood the depth of her strength and the quiet courage she carried every day. This was not a miracle meant to erase her disability or redefine her worth. It was a moment of love, raw and costly, chosen without hesitation. Tears blurred his vision as he realized that what began as an arrangement had transformed into a family bound by something far deeper than contracts. The guests saw a spectacle. He saw a woman who would endure pain without complaint to protect his children as her own. After the wedding, life did not become magically easy. She paid a physical price for that moment, weeks of recovery reminding everyone of her limitations, but the emotional shift was irreversible. The triplets adored her with a devotion that needed no explanation, and he found himself caring for her with a tenderness that surprised him. He learned her routines, her frustrations, her private victories, and she learned his fears, his regrets, and the quiet guilt he carried for surviving when his first wife did not. Together, they built a home that was imperfect, resilient, and real. The relatives who once hovered retreated, their power diminished by a marriage they could not control. The media buzzed briefly, hungry for inspiration and scandal, but the family chose privacy over spectacle. Days were filled with ordinary miracles, homework at the kitchen table, therapy sessions that ended in laughter, evenings where exhaustion was softened by shared purpose. Love grew not as a dramatic explosion but as a steady flame, fueled by trust, sacrifice, and the decision to show up every day. Years passed, and the mansion transformed from a symbol of isolation into a sanctuary of belonging. The triplets grew stronger, healthier, their laughter echoing through halls once haunted by silence. He found work that aligned with his values, using his experience to support other struggling parents. She expanded her philanthropic efforts, focusing on accessibility, family support, and dignity for those society overlooks. Their marriage, once questioned and misunderstood, became a quiet testament to what happens when compassion replaces fear. Just before we reach the end of this story, take a moment to comment below and share what this journey made you feel, because your words keep stories like this alive and reaching others who need them. On an ordinary afternoon years later, he watched her stand again, this time with braces and support, taking careful steps toward the garden where the children played. There was no audience, no applause, only the soft rustle of leaves and the sound of laughter carried on the wind. He realized then that the true miracle was never her standing from the chair, but the way two broken lives had chosen to hold each other upright when the world expected them to fall. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe even a little more in kindness, resilience, and unexpected love, please like, share, and engage with this video. Your support helps these stories find the people who need them most.